Okay, so what do you like about live music?
Well, playing live music has been a passion for me since I discovered that you could actually make your own music. When I was a wee tacker, my grandfather gave me a pair of football boots for Christmas one year because I asked for them, but I wasn't much of a football player. The next year he gave me a ukulele, and that saw a lot of service. By the time I was 14, I was playing guitar and looking for an electric guitar. I actually saw a band called Holocaust, which were a three-piece punk band back in the early 80s, down on the Derwent River waterfront at a sort of a mini festival called Rock and Roll on the Dole, you know. And it was the first live punk rock and roll that I'd ever seen, you know, and it turned me on so much that, you know, like I got to know the guys in the band, and one of them helped me pick out an electric guitar and, you know, showed me my first bar chord, you know. And yeah, like things just sort of took off from there. But the other thing that I like about live music, and, you know, I'm getting on a bit now, so I can remember the days before people had, you know, the internet on their phones and stuff like that. But I remember when my first band, who started in Hobart when I was, you know, like 18, 19, we used to get a couple of hundred people along on a Wednesday night, you know, which is like unheard of these days, you know, unless it's some sort of, you know, big name act, and even then, you know, like there's no guarantee, you know. The other thing I think too is that I think live music is like something that needs to be preserved, like you know, like archaeologically, especially, you know, rock and roll, blues, all forms of folk music, and I include rock and roll in that, you know. Any music that you don't need dots and paper to do, then, you know, I think every musician has an obligation to, you know, to pass that on to anyone who's interested, you know.
You took that from a personal player's perspective. What about as somebody that goes along to watch other people's gigs? How would you, what's your feeling for live music in that sense? What got you into that?
Well, like I say, you know, like I saw that band, and then I used to go along and see them a lot when they play at the old Red Lion down here.
I don't remember very
Yeah, and of course you're much too young, mate. But I think lots of people ask me this, you know, and like my stock answer is always like, going to see a band, you know, always makes me feel one or two ways. It always makes me either feel like, give me that fucking guitar and let me show you how to do it, you know, or it makes me really inspired and makes me want to fucking get it on, you know. I think one of the problems with live music these days, apart from, you know, dwindling crowd numbers because they're home watching Game of Thrones on their iPad or whichever, you know, is that the kids aren't coming from the same place. You know, like kids want to learn how to play something. Guitarists, especially guitarists, you know, want to learn how to play something. They look it up on YouTube, they work it out, you know. But you put them in a band situation, and they don't listen to the other players. They don't work it out. Whereas, you know, when I was learning, you know, you learn 12-bar blues in A, and when you could do that, then you could play with anyone, even if you didn't know what the chords were called. You know. So, you know, yeah, it's that search, I guess, you know, it's that search for that nugget of inspiration, that band that just goes, oh yeah, man, that's it, you know. For me, it's a quest, you know, both in my own music and, you know, when I go to see other bands, it's a quest for the essence of rock and roll, but that's just my particular sort of, you know, trip. I like a lot of other music as well, but, you know, looking for the essence of rock and roll is my trip, and I'm really glad to be playing in the Roots, because I think that's the closest I've ever come to, you know, really hitting the nail on the head as far as, you know, writing songs and playing with guys and making a noise, which is the essence of rock and roll, you know.
Yeah. So if I asked you to sum it up into one short sentence, do you think you could what really drives that passion?
I think I'd just go crazy without live music. I'd just go mad, you know. I've got to get it out, and if it's a good band, man, I'm dancing, and that's getting it out, you know. If I'm playing, then I'm getting it out, you know. But it has to be got out of me, you know. Like it's in here, and I've got to get it out, man. Otherwise, I get fucking cranky and shitty and stuff, you know, and that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, I've got a couple of good ones out of that. Yeah. All right. So, what do you think of the current live Tasmanian music scene? How do you think it's going?
I'm only really just starting to delve into a little bit more, mostly because you know my kids. One of them's just turned 20, and the other one's just started college. He's 16. He's live music mad, you know, learning to play the drums. I jammed with him all afternoon today. You know, he just loves it. But what keeps me going along? Well, I remember in the early days of the Roofs when you know the trout was a real sort of going concern. You know, it was a great social thing. You know, like people that dug the same stuff as you came together in the same place. You know, and that was a really good scene. And when scenes like that happen, you really have to capitalise on them because they don't last forever. They don't last very long even, you know. I mean, they were maybe 4 or 5 years at the Trout, you know, and that was just happenstance more than anything else, you know. It was like okay, you know, yeah, I think we're ready to, you know, do a gig somewhere, you know. I'll see if I can book us somewhere small and just do a sort of, you know, a sort of dry run almost, you know. So I booked the show on, went down to see Dave at the Trout, and who used to be one of the Red Lion crew, you know, and said, I know you got noise restrictions and stuff like that, man, you know, but I'm just looking for somewhere, you know, a bit little, you know, just to you know, do a gig and just sort of as a bit of a warm up, you know. And he said, well, all I got's Boxing Day, you know, but you can have it if you want it, but it'll only be like your mates and your girlfriends that'll turn up. He didn't know that my girlfriend, my partner, actually played in the band, but there you go. And as it happened, there was, I don't know, 180 plus people on that Boxing Day, man, you know, and that sort of coalesced all these little spots of happening stuff that were going on around Hobart into something a bit more central, you know. And it was great because it also meant that, you know, when Dave saw that, you know, like, you know, there were lots of people in his pub drinking lots of beer, he said, can you come back and do it again, you know, once a fortnight or something, you know. So we were like, yeah, of course, sure, you know, which put us in the position of having to find, you know, other bands that would come along and open the night for us, you know. So that was the start of, you know, going out looking for stuff, you know. And I guess now that, you know, the kids have grown up and sort of doing their own trip and can be left to their own devices more, you know. You know, we get around and check stuff out, you know, like. It depends, you know, like it's word of mouth. A lot of it's word of mouth, you know, like Straddlepuss, you know, heard good things about them. They're playing in the next room right now, you know. Power Nap, heard a lot of good things about them, you know. Mountains of Madness, you know. I've heard some good shit about them. So, you know, it's a word of mouth thing. And then when you get that, you know, it's like, well, the next opportunity I get, you know, I want to go check them out, you know. And you know, like selfishly from my perspective, quite often with a view to, you know, putting a bill together, you know, that'll include them, you know. Yeah. So I'm sorry if that wasn't short or concise enough, man. Yeah. You can edit it, huh?
I'm just listening for little grabs in the middle of there, and there's some goodies in there. So yeah, that's cool. What do you think that is the future of live music with the way the media is changing and how delivery systems are working?
Look, I don't think live music will ever die off, man. I mean, it's never going to get back to like it was in, the 30s, like when everybody didn't have a record player and everybody didn't have a TV and everybody didn't have an iPad or a computer, and if you walk down a street like, a street around North Hobart, maybe, I don't know. I wasn't in North Hobart in the 30s, but if you walk down the street, people would be jamming on their front porches on a sunny night. Like if it was winter, they'd be inside and they'd be jamming. Every house had a piano or a guitar or both. And I think that involvement in live music is something that people really feel in their hearts and in their souls. And when they get to experience something that hits that switch for them that they enjoy, then I think it's a panacea for them. It's a panacea for their soul.
Fucking over you spoke real well. I've never let the camera recording that long.